Okay, I'm gonna do my best in 10 minutes or less on giving you kind of step-by-step with measurements, ingredients on how to make a sourdough. Okay, this is the recipe I use. I'm gonna post this video on other channels that I have because people ask, and I don't know, sometimes the video is just easier so you can save it. Couple things to know. I live in high elevation, so over 7,500 feet up, okay? I don't alter this recipe. I don't overthink baking bread. And I know a lot of people do, and I know a lot of people are gonna get irritated with me saying that. I try not to overthink it. I go by feel, I go by look of the dough, of the starter. So I try not to overthink, and I just kind of change and alter as I go, okay? You are going to need a mature starter, okay? I have the recipe, the one I use on my website. You're welcome to go under there. It's under recipes. You can figure that out or use your own. So how I work is going backwards from when I want to bake with sourdough, okay? Because you can't make the dough and then bake it the same day. At least not the recipe I use, okay? So day one, you're in the evening time, I recommend. In the evening time, you're gonna autolyze. I think that's how you say it. Basically, it is starter, flour, and water, okay? These are the measurements I use to do this. 50 grams of a starter, 75 grams of all-purpose flour, 75 grams of warm water. Mix, cover, let it sit overnight. Day two, you're gonna get the bowl that you autolyzed with all the mixture, okay? And whether it's midday or I usually do mine in like late afternoon, early evening is when I usually start to make and pull the dough, okay? In that bowl, you're gonna wanna add 800 grams of warm water plus 10 grams of sea salt. Okay, sea salt is optional, but I like sea salt. It gives it a little bit more flavor. I mix the sea salt with the water and then add to the autolyzed mixture, okay? And then you should see everything float. That means it's good. Then I add 1,000 grams of bread flour. And I use a digital scale. I mix everything up, cover it, let it sit on the countertop for about 30 minutes. Now, here's where you're gonna have to be kind of dedicated for time to pull the dough, to mix the dough. For the next hour and a half, every 30 minutes, you're gonna pull the dough up and over, okay? Keep pulling it up so you make kind of a complete circle. And then you let it rest. And then the next 30 minutes you do that. So you do that for a total of an hour and a half, so like 3 times, okay? Once that time passes, you can use a proofing box, the same bowl, whatever. Put a little bit of oil in it, okay? Just a little so it's not sticky. And you're going to keep it covered. And if you want, you need a ferment, okay? So you can either put it in the fridge. I have a cellar, so I put mine in the cellar, okay? So it's covered, it's kind of cool down there, and it sits overnight, all right? Now, if you don't want to do the fridge, because sometimes the fridge, in my opinion, the dough doesn't come out great, leave it on the countertop. What you're gonna notice, it's gonna double in size. Day 3, baking day, right? So I recommend getting the dough wherever you put it. If it's been on the counter room temp, you're fine. But if it's been in the fridge or a cellar, kind of in a cooler area, get it into room temp and let it kind of just sit there for even an hour. Okay? During that time, you want to get a Dutch oven and you want to put it in your oven and you want to heat that Dutch oven to 500 degrees for at least 40-45 minutes. Once you get it to that temperature, and I recommend buying an oven temp gauge, they're super cheap. That way you actually know what the temperature is in your oven, because sometimes when it says 500, it might only be 450, okay? When your oven's heating up, you can get the dough shaped. I like to use a sheet of parchment paper, put some flour on it, and you want to dump the dough out of the bowl or the box, whatever you had it in, and you want to start to shape it, okay? Now, there might be professional bakers and other people have been doing this a lot longer than I have. They're like, that's not how you do it. Do whatever works for you. That's my recommendation. My bread comes out perfect every time, in my opinion. So, and that goes by taste, look, and feel. So you want to shape the dough. You're going to notice air pockets in the dough. That's kind of where you need to release some of the gas so you can score the loaf however you want. If you want to do a fancy design or you just want to cut it a few times, up to you. You want to take your Dutch oven out. It's going to be incredibly hot, so be very careful. This is where the parchment paper comes in handy. You can just lift the dough, everything, and just put it in the pot, okay? Put the lid on, put it back into the oven. It's at 500 degrees, and I bake it for 27 minutes with the lid on. Once that 27 minutes is done, I reset the timer to 17 minutes and remove the lid and lower the heat in the oven to 450. And I bake for another 17 minutes. The top will be crusty and the bread is going to look ace. Once that's done, you take it out. You want to let the bread cool before you cut it. I recommend removing the bread out of the pot very carefully because it's incredibly, incredibly hot. I cannot stress that enough. And if you burn yourself, you'll know. You'll never do it again. Remove the bread from the pot, let it cool on the counter, whether it's on a baking sheet or whatever it is. Let it cool. And once it's cool, you can cut it, and it should look like this. See? That's kind of what you're looking for. I hope this helps a little bit. Sourdough can be very daunting at first, but once you've done it a few times, it's easy peasy. And like I said, I really just adjust on how my starter looks, how the dough looks. I try not to overthink when baking bread. If you overcomplicate it, it's going to just get harder for no reason, okay?